in the last few months, in relation to Iran, we've heard the word barbaric. I think Rishi Sunak and also, what is the name of the foreign minister? Can you remind me, one of you? Cleverly, well done. He used the word as well, barbaric, because they executed a chap about a month ago, Akbari, that they said he was a British agent.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Kim Philby of Iran. Yeah. Anyway, amputation, they use technology now. So if you are, they think you've done something like theft, you think they're teaching somebody, some engineering or, use of machine tools, whereas they are chopping people's hands. Another big event in the calendar of Islamic Republic was 8 years war with Iraq. Absolutely futile war. And we are talking about millions of young Iraqis and Iranians died in that war. It was the longest war in the 20th century.
And Saddam Hussein was the Iraq.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, lots of young people, lots of boy soldiers participated. They called it human waves, and chemical weapons were used, and arms dealers were selling arms to both sides. Big tragedy, human cost, and still to this day, many of them have lost legs, hands, those which survived. As I mentioned earlier, chemical weapons were used, and many countries denied selling these chemical agents to these countries. But the human tragedy was there, and lots of people died because of these nerve agents and chemical warfare. Those of you which have been following perhaps Iranian news, you saw a trial of an Iranian in Sweden about 2 years ago, that he was basically tried for killing of prisoners in 1987. And he was in fact given a life sentence. What happened was, after Iran-Iraq war suddenly stopped, they thought they got lots of prisoners which might be pro-Saddam Hussein. So they executed roughly about 4,000 to 5,000 prisoners in a matter of few weeks. And this chap, in fact, was associated with those killings, and overwhelming evidence after 30 years proved that he was involved, and under international jurisdiction, he was caught and he was condemned. So it shows that the law, international law, can in fact punish and help you to bring these people to account. I am sure many of you who lived in Canterbury would know the name Terry Waite. And by 1982, suddenly we saw lots of financing of resources of these militias in Lebanon, because they were also Shia sect. So another branch of Hezbollah was formed at the beginning of 80s. I'm talking about 81, 82, it was formed. And their job became, as we can see in the next pictures, just kidnapping anyone that was of some interest. This poor man, if you remember, under Robert Runcie, the Archbishop of Canterbury then, was sent as a peacemaker to release if you remember McCarthy and Keenan,
Yeah.
they got him as well. And he spent 4 years going from one house to another house. None of them has ever recovered. None of them recovered. Mentally, they never recovered. I follow them. If you carry on, this is the bombing of the Marines in Lebanon, in Beirut. And in this incident, hundreds of Marines were killed because a suicide bomber drove to the campsite and killed all those Marines. Does anybody know what this picture relates to? It's very difficult. This is not Turkey, because we've been seeing gruesome images of Turkey which are very similar. Yeah,
embassy in Kenya.
this is Buenos Aires. This is the Jewish center in Buenos Aires. This was the biggest killing of Jewish community, again on record. And this is the British Embassy in Tehran. British Embassy in Tehran has been ransacked few times. I think maybe 3 times or 4 times it has been ransacked. And every time again that they want something, doesn't matter what it is, and they cannot get it through diplomatic channels, they start climbing the wall. But the whole tragedy of it, these are all state-sponsored. This is not just people who would climb the gates to go and steal a computer. Again, this case was, Radcliffe case was publicized in UK. She was taken hostage for a few years under some charges. I'm sure many of you know that we've seen lots of petition about her. And in fact, Radcliffe himself, I think he kind of put all his life, day and night, to get her out. And there was not a thing that he didn't do, everything. I mean, one time he was sitting outside the embassy in London, with his flask and, Anyhow, this is picture of, you will say, what this Chinese looking guy doing there? In fact, he was an Iranian scholar who knew Iranian language, Persian language. He was researching in Iran, but then he was taken kidnapped for spying for United States. Anyhow, he was released. And I think this is one of the pictures I took from your activities here in Canterbury. And again, I just wanted to demonstrate that it has been as a result of good work by Amnesty International that has had some impact. I'm not saying that the impact in every time has been success, but it has publicized. Sometimes that publicity has been good, but sometimes they have actually used that and they've said, oh, well, because Amnesty is supporting this guy, he's definitely an agent.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Many of these terminology in the West, if you talked about people in the 70s, what is a fatwa? What is a jihad? What is hijab? Nobody knew of these terminologies. These are the terminology of terrorism. And suddenly people were asking, what is a fatwa? And then somebody had to go and explain fatwa is that one religious cleric living in this country has said, this guy, we don't like him, so can you send somebody else to kill him? And anyone which does it goes to heaven. And that's what they did with Salman Rushdie. And after the release of the Satanic Verses, we saw anybody which was associated somehow with this book, whether you were a translator, whether you were a publisher, whether you were a distributor, anything, you were exposed. You would have been stabbed, you would have been shot, you would have disappeared. Do people know who this chap is? He was the Japanese translator of the Satanic Verses, which was killed by knife. And this is Mr. Matar, and I think some of you might recently have seen his picture in media. Do people know who this gentleman is? Recently jumped onto the stage and stabbed Mr. Rushdie, where he lost one eye.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And this gentleman is the Danish cartoonist of the pictures of Muhammad. Again, they tried in many ways to kill him. Even they went to his house, I don't know, why, with knife to kill this guy. Anyhow, he died of natural causes. So since 1979, the regime has been in permanent turmoil. And at the heart of it, really, if you wanted to know what is the problem is these two words. It's been modernity versus orthodoxies. There's been nothing else. People who have got a brain set, they have a mindset which is 1,400 years old, are demanding that people stay in the Middle Ages with all its thinking, which is all its ruling, and everything have to be adjusted to that way of thinking. And that is at the core of it. And what we see now, again, is the same thing. Nothing, people want to move on, but they want people to go to heaven by force. Okay, these dates I have put in here just to say that in the last decades, and these days, June 2009, we saw a big eruption of discontent. December of 2017, November of 2019, and September of 2022. In all of them, thousands of people have been killed, and thousands of people have been arrested. And again, because the latest one is very new and was in the media, the other ones were not reported as much, but in scale, maybe they were bigger. Okay, I think I would play that song because this song became like a symbol of this uprising. And in fact, this song was played by Coldplay, and some of
We're going to sing a song now that right now is being sung by many people in Iran and many of the Persian diaspora, people who left Iran after the revolution. And I don't know if you've seen on the news, but young women and young people are fighting for their freedom, for the right to be themselves. And we believe as a band that everybody should be able to be themselves as long as you don't hurt anybody else. So we fully send our love and support to all of those people, brave young people fighting for freedom. And there's a song that they sing which is called Baraye by an artist called Sherbin Hajipour, who is in trouble with the authorities just for writing a song about people being free. So we're going to sing his song, and we're going to ask our friend Gol, who's an Iranian movie star, to please come and help us sing. Please welcome Gol Shifte Farahani. And you may not know this song, but we've got to give it everything because we're going to send this with love from here to Iran. Here we go.
ترسیدن برای ترسیدن به وقت رسیدن برای خواهران برای تغییر مرزها که پوسیدن برای شرمندگی برای بی‌پولی برای حسرتی که زندگی برای قلبی که سوال گرد آرزوهاش برای این اختصار دستوری برای این هوای آلوده برای بنی از روزهای فرسوده برای پیروز و احتمال ابرازش برای سعیهای بیگناه ممنوعه برای گریه های بی‌وقفه برای تصویر تکرار این لحظه برای برای دانش روزا برای آینده برای این بهشت اجباری برای نخبه های زندانی برای کودکان افغانی برای این همه برای غیر تکراری برای این همه شعارهای توخانی برای آمار خوده های گوشاری برای احساس آرامش برای خورشید پس از شبان طولانی برای حساب و بیخوابی برای مرد میهن آبادی برای دختری که آرزو داشت پسر بود برای من زندگی آزادی برای آزادی برای آزادی برای آزادی برای آزادی برای لیبرتاد برای آزادی برای آزادی para las mujeres, para la vida, para la libertad. Gracias.
Thank you, everybody. Gracias.
People like a break, or are you happy just to continue listening?
Carry on.
Carry on? We'll carry on.
Carry on. Good. Okay.
We're going to sing a song now that
Okay. We saw in 2008, 2009, that was known as Green Movement. And it was over the election of 2008, 2009, that when the person who came out of the ballot box was not the person that people voted for, they came out in millions. In fact, that was the explosion. They felt cheated. And how did the regime respond? As it did respond from day one. Open machine gun. Rooftop, machine gun, they demonstrated. And in fact, she was one of the first person that was killed by a sniper in the daylight. Her name was Neda Agha Sultan, and she became the symbol of that 2008, 2009 uprising. Few years later, this is 2017, and this started for economic reason. But again, with Iranian politics, economic reason, oppression, people had enough, they all are mixed together. And again, we saw lots of women came out and lots of people again got killed, imprisoned, and disappeared. And I think the tragedy of many of these killings that we have seen in the last 40 years. The worst one are those that they disappear. They don't have any graves.